The Accidental President. Part 10. A New Dawn. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. The battle for Abuja was over, and with it, the long and brutal war that had ravaged Nigeria. The capital, once under siege, was now quiet, its streets filled not with the sounds of conflict but with the hum of reconstruction. Yet, the scars of war were everywhere: buildings reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and a city struggling to find its footing after the storm. Joshua Odum stood in his office, gazing out over the city that had been the epicenter of so much violence and heartache. The sunrise cast a warm glow over Abuja, but for Joshua, the dawn brought no immediate sense of relief. The war had ended, but the true challenge was only just beginning. Adaora entered the room, a file in hand. Despite the exhaustion that lined her face, her presence was a steadying force for Joshua. "The latest reports," she said, handing him the file. "We've secured most of the city, and reconstruction efforts are already underway. The international community is starting to send aid, but it will be a long road." Joshua took the file and glanced through the reports. The enormity of what lay ahead was staggering. Rebuilding the infrastructure, restoring order, and most of all, healing the wounds left by the conflict. "We need to start by securing basic services. Electricity, water, healthcare," Joshua said, his voice measured but heavy with the weight of responsibility. "People need to see that things are getting better, that there's hope for the future. If we don't move quickly, the despair could linger, and that's something we can't afford." Adaora nodded. "We've already begun deploying teams to restore utilities and set up temporary shelters for those displaced by the fighting. But there's something else, Joshua. People are looking to you for more than just leadership. They need reassurance, a vision for what comes next." Joshua understood what she meant. Throughout the war, he had been a symbol of resistance and hope, but now, with the guns silenced, people needed something more. They needed to believe that the sacrifices they had made had not been in vain, that there was a future worth rebuilding. "I'll address the nation," Joshua said after a moment. "I'll lay out our plan for the future, and I'll speak to the need for unity and reconciliation. But we also need to acknowledge the pain and loss that people have endured. This can't just be about moving forward. We have to heal." Adaora agreed. "It's crucial that we address the divisions that have been deepened by the war. Ethnic tensions, the legacy of Kalu's propaganda, the grievances that people have, these won't disappear overnight. We need to create spaces for dialogue, for people to voice their concerns and feel heard." Joshua looked at Adaora, grateful for her insight. "You're right. We can't just rebuild the infrastructure. We have to rebuild the social fabric of this country. That means acknowledging our past, including the dark chapters, and finding a way to move beyond them." Setting: the streets of Abuja. In the days that followed, Abuja began to show signs of life. The debris was cleared, and construction crews worked tirelessly to repair the damaged buildings and restore essential services. Markets reopened, children began to play in the streets once more, and the people of Abuja, resilient as ever, started the long process of returning to normalcy. But the process was slow, and the pain of the war was still fresh. Families mourned the dead, and the wounds inflicted by the conflict, both physical and emotional, would take years to heal. Joshua visited some of the hardest hit areas of the city, speaking with residents, listening to their stories, and offering words of comfort. He knew that his presence alone was not enough, but he also understood the importance of being there, of showing that he was committed to the recovery of the nation. During one visit, Joshua encountered an elderly woman who had lost her home in the fighting. Her eyes, though tired, were filled with a quiet determination. "We've survived wars before," she told Joshua. "We'll survive this one too. But we need to do more than survive. We need to find a way to live together again." Her words stayed with Joshua as he continued his rounds. The task ahead was not just about rebuilding brick and mortar. It was about rebuilding trust, about fostering a sense of community in a nation that had been torn apart. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. As the weeks passed, the government began to take shape in the post-war era. Adaora and other key figures who had been instrumental in the war effort took on new roles, helping to guide the country through its recovery. Adaora, in particular, became a central figure in the transitional government, her expertise and dedication making her invaluable in the rebuilding process. She oversaw the establishment of committees to address the most pressing issues: reconstruction, economic recovery, and social reconciliation. "The work we're doing now will define the future of Nigeria," Adaora said during a cabinet meeting. "We need to be mindful of the choices we make and ensure that they reflect the values we've fought for: justice, equality, and unity." Joshua couldn't agree more. The war had been fought to protect these ideals, and now, in the peace that followed, it was their responsibility to see them realized. But he also knew that the road ahead was fraught with challenges. The wounds left by the war ran deep, and the divisions within the country would not be easily mended. One of the most pressing challenges was addressing the ethnic and regional tensions that had been exacerbated by the conflict. Kalu's propaganda had sown seeds of distrust and animosity, and Joshua knew that without deliberate efforts to promote reconciliation, these tensions could flare up again. "We need to create opportunities for dialogue," Joshua said during a meeting with local leaders. "People need to be able to express the grievances and be part of the healing process. This isn't just about rebuilding the country. It's about rebuilding our sense of community." Setting: a national address, Abuja. After weeks of planning and consultation, the day came for Joshua to address the nation. The speech had been carefully crafted, balancing the need to acknowledge the pain and loss of the past with the hope and determination needed to move forward. Joshua stood before the cameras, his face calm but resolute. He knew that the words he spoke today would carry significant weight. They would set the tone for the future of Nigeria. "To my fellow Nigerians," Joshua began, his voice steady, "we have endured a time of great trial, and we have come through it together. The war that has ravaged our land has left deep scars, on our cities, on our families, on our hearts. But today, as we stand on the brink of a new dawn, we must remember that those scars do not define us. They are a testament to our resilience, our strength, and our commitment to a better future." Joshua spoke of the sacrifices made, of the lives lost, and of the suffering that so many had endured. He did not shy away from the harsh realities, but he also offered a vision of hope, a future where the divisions of the past could be healed, where Nigeria could emerge stronger and more united. "Rebuilding our nation will not be easy," he continued. "It will require hard work, determination, and a willingness to confront the difficult truths of our past. But I believe in the spirit of the Nigerian people. I believe in our ability to come together, to heal, and to build a future that honors the memory of those we have lost and the values we hold dear." Joshua called for unity and reconciliation, urging Nigerians to look beyond the differences and work together for the common good. He spoke of the need for justice, for addressing the grievances that had fueled the conflict, but also for forgiveness and understanding. "Our strength lies in our unity," Joshua concluded. "Let us build a Nigeria where every citizen, regardless of ethnicity, religion, or region, can exist in peace and prosperity. Let us ensure that the sacrifices we have made were not in vain. Together, we can build a new dawn for Nigeria." As he finished his speech, there was a moment of silence, followed by a ripple of applause that grew into a wave of support. Joshua knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but in that moment, he felt a sense of hope. The people were ready to rebuild, to heal, and to move forward. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. Later that evening, as the city settled into the quiet of the night, Joshua found himself on the balcony of the presidential villa, looking out over Abuja. The city was still scarred by the war, but there were signs of recovery everywhere. Construction crews working late into the night, lights flickering on in buildings that had been dark for weeks, and the distant sound of laughter from a group of children playing in the streets. Adorora joined him, a cup of tea in her hands. "You did well today, Joshua," she said softly. "People needed to hear your voice, to know that we're on the right path." Joshua nodded, his gaze still on the city. "We've come so far, but there's still so much to do. The war may be over, but the work of rebuilding has only just begun." Adorora placed a hand on his arm, offering reassurance. "We'll do it together. This country has been through so much, but it has always found a way to rise again. We'll build something better, something lasting." Joshua turned to her, his expression one of gratitude and determination. "Thank you, Adorora. I couldn't have done any of this without you." She smiled, a rare moment of warmth in the midst of their burdens. "And I couldn't have done it without you, Joshua. We've all played our part, but it's your leadership that has held everything together. We have a long way to go, but we're moving in the right direction." Joshua sighed, a mix of relief and the weight of responsibility still heavy on his shoulders. "I just hope I can measure up to the expectations. The people are counting on us, on me, to lead them out of this darkness and into something better." Adorora looked at him with empathy and understanding. "You've already done more than most could ever dream of. But this isn't something you have to do alone. We're all in this together. We'll build the future we've been fighting for, one step at a time." Joshua nodded, drawing strength from her words. The burden was immense, but it was not his alone to carry. They had fought together through the war, and they would continue to stand together in peace. He turned his gaze back to the city, the lights twinkling in the distance like stars in the night sky. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope, not just for Abuja, but for all of Nigeria. Setting. Across Nigeria. In the days and weeks that followed, the spirit of recovery spread beyond Abuja. Across Nigeria, communities began to rebuild, drawing on the strength and resilience that had seen them through the war. It was not an easy process. There were still deep wounds to heal, and many challenges remained, but there was a sense of purpose, a determination to create a future that honored the sacrifices made. In the north, where the conflict had been particularly fierce, efforts to restore infrastructure were underway, with new schools and hospitals being built to replace those destroyed in the fighting. In the south, agricultural programs were launched to revitalize the land and provide food security for the recovering nation. In the east and west, new industries began to emerge, offering jobs and hope to communities that had been devastated by the war. Throughout it all, Joshua Odum and his government worked tirelessly to support these efforts, ensuring that resources were distributed fairly and that every region received the help it needed. The task was monumental, but it was driven by a shared vision, a vision of a united Nigeria, stronger and more resilient than ever before. Adorora, now serving as the head of a National Reconciliation Commission, played a key role in addressing the social divisions that had been exacerbated by the conflict. She led initiatives to foster dialogue between communities, bringing together people from different ethnic and religious backgrounds to discuss the grievances and find common ground. "We cannot move forward if we remain divided," Adorora said during one of the Commission's early meetings. "Our strength lies in our diversity, but we must work to bridge the gaps that have kept us apart. This Commission is not just about healing the wounds of the past, it's about building a foundation for a more inclusive and just future." Under her leadership, the Commission made significant strides in promoting reconciliation. Local peacebuilding committees were established across the country, and educational programs were launched to teach the next generation about the importance of unity and understanding. It was a slow and sometimes painful process, but it was essential for the long-term stability of the nation. Setting. A national celebration, Lagos. Months later, as Nigeria began to find its footing once more, a national celebration was held in Lagos to mark the beginning of a new era. The city, which had played a pivotal role in the conflict, was now a symbol of resilience and hope. The celebration was attended by leaders from across the country, as well as representatives from the international community who had supported Nigeria during its darkest hours. Joshua stood before the crowd, the Nigerian flag waving proudly behind him. The air was filled with a sense of anticipation, of renewal. The people gathered there were not just celebrating the end of the war, they were celebrating the beginning of a new chapter in Nigeria's history. Today, we stand together as one nation, Joshua began, his voice carrying over the crowd. We have endured great trials, and we have emerged stronger. This celebration is not just a commemoration of our past, it is a commitment to our future. A future where every Nigerian, regardless of where they come from, can coexist in peace, dignity, and prosperity. He spoke of the challenges they had overcome, of the courage and resilience shown by the Nigerian people. But he also spoke of the work that still lay ahead, the need to continue rebuilding, to continue healing, and to continue striving for a better future. We have a long road ahead, Joshua said, his voice filled with conviction. But I have faith in our ability to walk that road together. We will rebuild our nation, not just in bricks and mortar, but in spirit and community. We will ensure that the lessons of this war are not forgotten, and that the sacrifices made are honored in the way we live our lives and treat one another. As he concluded his speech, the crowd erupted into applause, the sound echoing across the city. For a moment, Joshua stood there, taking it all in, the faces of the people, the unity they shared, the hope that had been rekindled. Setting: the presidential villa, Abuja. Later that evening, Joshua returned to the presidential villa in Abuja. The celebration had been a success, and the mood in the country was one of cautious optimism. But as he sat in his office, looking over the plans for the next phase of reconstruction, he knew that the journey was far from over. The night was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos and noise of the past months. Joshua felt the weight of the moment, the end of one chapter, the beginning of another. He knew that the challenges they faced were immense, but he also knew that they were not insurmountable. Adaora joined him, as she often did in these late hours. She had become not just a trusted advisor, but a close friend and confidant. They had been through so much together, and there was a comfort in her presence that words could not capture. "What's on your mind?" Adaora asked, sensing the introspection in his demeanor. Joshua looked at her, a small smile playing on his lips. "I was just thinking about how far we've come, and how far we still have to go." Adaora nodded, understanding. "We've made it through the hardest part. Now it's about building something lasting. Something that will stand the test of time." Joshua leaned back in his chair, his gaze drifting to the window and the night sky beyond. "I've been thinking a lot about the future. About what kind of country we want Nigeria to be. We have a chance to redefine ourselves, to create a nation that reflects the best of who we are." Adaora smiled. "And I believe we will. We've already seen what we're capable of when we work together. Now we just have to keep that momentum going." Joshua nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The war had tested him in ways he had never imagined, but it had also shown him the strength of the people he served. It was that strength, that resilience, that would carry them forward. "We have a new dawn ahead of us," Joshua said softly. "And I'm ready to meet it." Adaora placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We all are." Together, they sat in quiet reflection, knowing that the road ahead would be long, but also knowing that they had the courage and determination to walk it. The night was peaceful, the city below them beginning to heal, and in that moment, they allowed themselves to hope. The dawn of a new Nigeria was on the horizon, and with it came the promise of a future filled with possibility, unity, and peace.